But thank you all so much for joining us. Author Clay McLeod Chapman will discuss his latest social horror novel, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, in conversation with author V. Castro in this installment of Author Hour in Massachusetts. So, V. Castro is a two-time Bram Stoker Award-nominated writer, born in San Antonio, Texas, to Mexican-American parents. She's been writing horror stories since she was a child, always fascinated by Mexican folklore and the urban legends of Texas. Castro now lives in the United Kingdom with her family, writing and traveling with her children. She's written more than 7 books, and her forthcoming collection of short stories, The Pink Agave Motel and Other Stories, will be published next month. And Clay McLeod Chapman writes novels, comic books, and children's books, as well as for film and television. He's the author of the horror novels The Remaking, Whisper Down the Lane, Ghost Eaters, and What Kind of Mother. He also co-wrote Quiet Part Loud, a horror podcast produced by Jordan Peele's Monkeypaw for Spotify. And he's here tonight to discuss his new novel, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. So, folks, those watching live, those watching the recording, let's give a big virtual round of applause to V and Clay for joining us here tonight. And V, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Hey everyone. Well, first, thank you for joining us in this, just casual kind of like, I would say fireside chat, but we're not like fireside. I'd just say like, like a couple people hanging out, talking horror, talking books.
Yeah.
And this book, well, it wasn't what I expected. I don't know if any of you have read it yet. And if you have, put in the chat that you have read it. Don't know spoilers though.
I would have to imagine if anyone has read it, they wouldn't be here. They'd be like, no, I'm done. I'm out. I don't need to hear that guy talk anymore. I think I've heard enough.
But come on, your books are awesome. Like you really have this way of, well, let's rewind first, okay? And then I'll tell you. Okay.
Wait, but can we like rewind? Can we rewind? Because I just want to say to everybody who's watching this, V, which stands for very awesome or very amazing, or very gracious. Like it is, V is in London right now. She is in the UK, and it is so late there that she is doing this out of the kindness of her heart that I just need to say thank you for doing this, because
honestly, it's my pleasure. As I was saying before, I live in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. There's like mice scratching outside and other vermin. So to me, I'm like, yeah, this is fun. Let's go.
wait,
So
do things like on any given night, will there just be like scratchy sounds like right outside your
yeah,
bedroom?
yeah.
That's
There's always
spooky.
animals around everywhere.
Oh,
Badgers, fox, all sorts, crows.
that's terrifying.
I know, and I
Do they
write.
get into the house?
There's some mice, but I'm about to take care of them. Anyway, so let's get back to the book, okay? Wake up, open your eyes. Okay, I remember, let's rewind. I think we were at Camp Nikon and I was mentioning, oh, I'm getting your book. And he gave me this look. You gave me this look like, and I was like, well, what is that? Like, I know you're a good writer. It's like, well, people, I don't know how people are going to receive it. I've had mixed um, kind of, feedback. But honestly, the feedback has been amazing. It has been absolutely, and it's well deserved. But going back to that moment, how was it writing this book? Knowing, because I know how it ends and the whole story. What was
Hmm.
it like writing this? What was it just sitting down? I mean, some of these scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's intense. I will say. And what's interesting is that, like, you're talking about this moment between the two of us that happened in what, June or July
July,
or
yeah,
August. Like
July.
it was the summer, and
Yeah.
that was pre-November, pre-election. Like
Hmm.
like I started writing this book in like I pitched it and started developing it in like December 2022, and then like into like starting to write it January 2023. And I probably said goodbye to the manuscript like early-ish, like springish of 2024. Um, and the world has gone through so many cycles since then that like the things that I was responding to in writing it have been refreshed or shellacked by other things. So, I mean, the conversation that we had in July of 2024, like I was having a very different conversation in, November 6th, 2024, January, like it's this book is just kind of like, I don't know, like it is. I have had nothing but anxiety about this book going out there into the world, um, up until release day. And I'm like, it's been a week out now and it's out there in the world. And yeah, I'm finding my peace with it. I'm hoping, begging, pleading, praying that readers find their peace with it because it's
Honestly, people are really loving it. I mean, I've only read really positive things on social media about it.
then
And
stop right now. You don't have to look just don't look anywhere else. Like everybody loves it. That's it. Don't,
well, I mean, everybody
five
has their
stars, five
opinion on
stars.
Goodreads, so you know, but going back to that,
Yeah.
let's rewind again. You did mention right now you wrote this pre-November.
Yeah.
You went all the way back. What prompted you to write it? Because it is real horror and it's just so timely. I mean,
Yeah.
you could not even, yeah, it was like this spark of, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I wrote it, so I need to own it. But I have members of my family. Over the course of say like the last 5, 10 years, I've seen a kind of shift in ideology that seems to be accelerated, exasperated due to their intake of news, of where they get their information from. And I I realized that I wasn't alone in this, that
Yeah.
other people out there in the world have been kind of dealing with kind of similar circumstances, situations. And in reading about it and kind of like, for me, like there was the kind of conversations that I was having with my family members and how the kind of shift kind of created a little bit of a schism, a little bit of a gap in our kind of leanings, where I'm kind of on this end of the spectrum and, family members are on that end of the spectrum. And it felt very kind of isolating. Like I felt very kind of alone with that. And so my kind of recourse for myself was to kind of like even before like thinking of the book, it was just like, I want to learn about this. I want to like, you know, find out what's going on. And reading articles, seeing news kind of segments. I what kind of struck me was there was this phrase, this kind of certain saying that certain people were saying in certain circumstances. And it was always some version of, well, it feels like my parents are possessed. Or it's like my uncle's possessed, or like I don't know who they are anymore. It's like they're a completely different person. It's like they're possessed. And I just read that enough times or heard that enough times that all of a sudden I was like, well, has anyone like done that? Like, has anyone like quite literally like tried to write that like the story of like my parents, my uncle, my son, they're possessed now. Um, and I kind of feel like nobody had within the kind of the the like where we are now, like where things are at. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I think I'm gonna write about this because, and I don't know about you, but like for me, like I've gotten to a point within my writing where I need to write about something that scares me. That
Mhm.
like I always say this, like it's like I have to feel like there's some skin in the game, and to me that is like, well, like starting from a place of like what is scaring me, like what am I afraid of, and right now I'm afraid of this. This is what scares me, and so yeah, that was in essence the kind of nugget of like okay, I think I'm gonna write about this, which was a terrible decision on my part.
Well, I definitely felt like the antagonist. I felt Clay there. I felt a bit of Clay in the way, the reaction, the voice, and maybe it's because
Yeah.
I know you and I've met you enough times that I felt I did see you in
Yeah.
my brain when I was reading it. And I know you're a father and
Yeah.
your kids are gorgeous. I've seen them on Instagram. And so when I was reading this, I was imagining you and I was imagining like one of your children. And I think that made it even more harrowing for me because of what the journey this man goes through this um possess possession of this ideology possession, I
Yeah.
guess you could say. And
Yeah.
I could definitely feel it, see it. Um, and there are other characters I want to go into, but first, talking about information, misinformation, we're going to kind of sidetrack a little bit. Because I mean, you do amazing social media. I'm just going to put it out there, guys. He does awesome videos, social media. What do you think about the TikTok ban? Being a creator, um, because it's like I think this Sunday. What is your opinion on that?
Um, I don't, to be honest, like, I mean, I'll be frank and say I never figured TikTok out. So specifically, like living
Hmm.
in a world with or without TikTok, I I don't know if it is going to affect me personally because I've been waiting for that moment where like some, TikTokers like this is the book you guys need to read, y'all, and like then it's like because like
I'm famous.
I mean, I hope Nat doesn't mind that. I have a friend, Nat Cassidy, who
Yeah.
writes these amazing horror novels, and like, he's very kind of open about it, where like he speaks about like how TikTok, like these like influencers, like took his book Mary, and were like, and just like posted videos where they're like, this is the video like and it's almost like a kind of BCAD thing where it's like you see Nat like got this book out there, nobody's reading it, and then like just these choice TikTokers like suddenly like one person does it and then another person picks up on it, and then you can see like all of a sudden like Nat is like this like TikTok darling. So I never had that. So for me, it's kind of like, oh, that's a bummer. There's another thing that kind of bites the dust. But if I was Nat, I'd be worried because Nat is the TikTok made that man. And, but
No, it's because we're talking about information and that's a core part of the book,
yeah,
of how people are getting their information and what facilitates this illness,
yeah.
shall we call it?
I'm,
So oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
well, no, I mean, like it's funny because I think that like in terms of the book, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, it's there's a macro view to it, and I feel like I need to pitch it up front for those who haven't read it and are on the fence. But it's like to me, the book is about like half of the country gets possessed, and which half totally depends on where you get your information from. So, is that 24-hour news networks? Is that social media? Is that baby shark? Like, like we're living in these kind of algorithmic days where so much of information comes at us at this kind of like low calorie, high fructose corn syrup kind of way that it's like it just kind of washes over you. And I just thought it would be interesting to focus like a demonic epidemic on that. Um, but yeah, to me, to get back to your point, like of, sensing me, like, you know, if I was going to write this book, I needed to take myself to task just as much as anyone else. I think that like, you know, conservative, you know, Fox TV watching, viewers, like that to me feels like the lowest hanging fruit for anyone who wants to make a kind of easy, kind of quick joke. And I feel like that's kind of an aperture into the book because it's the most immediate thing that we are critical of on a kind of left liberal end of the spectrum. But then the book collapses, it kind of like it inverts itself and it becomes this kind of like chastisement for me, where like Noah, that character that you're talking about, that's just me ripping myself a new one for 200 pages because I feel like I shouldn't be allowed to write this book unless like somebody rakes me over the coals. So like I'm just like I'm lambasting myself for being that kind of that left liberal guy who grew like, who lives in Brooklyn in a coastal elite city who like, like who's just I will not survive the apocalypse. Like I'm just not made, like I just do not have like I'm like zombie
Honestly,
fodder. Like I'm
I
done.
was about to say, it's so funny. So you said two things that kind of go into what I was going to say before, but honestly, at one point I did feel like, oh my God, has this just turned into like a zombie book? Because you do get that like it just becomes at some one point just relentless. Like
Mhm.
literally, I am sitting there. It is relentless, and you're like, oh my God, like um, especially with a blender scene. There's a blender scene, and I just was like,
Mhm. Yeah. Those
oh.
Vitamixes, man. You got to watch out for them. Who
But
brings a
going back
blender
to
into
that,
their
was
house?
it a ninja? Was it a ninja? I think I can't remember. Um, so going back to that, so
Yeah.
like you said, Fox, it's low-hanging fruit. But then I saw you in St. Louis, and I had read the book by then, and I had to stop you and ask you about, and I'll ask you again, how did you come up with the idea of the Instagram kind of yoga mama goddess character?
Yeah.
Because I actually, I'm really into spirituality. I'm into all of that stuff. So I follow some of these women. Now, not quite like the one in the book, but definitely I that really hit home and I saw it in my mind. I was like, boom.
Yeah.
Um, because then you do see the reels and you do watch see the comments and you're like, wow, it really hit home and it was very realistic to me. How
Yeah.
did you go about getting that character and having that angle? Because that is a lot more subtle.
Yeah.
That's not like in your face, just the facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that is
No,
subtle and it's disguised as be the best version of you.
yeah. I mean, I I will be I will be transparent and say, this book, it's dealing with demonic possession, whatever you want to call it. Like, people are kind of losing their identities by way of whatever is on the other end. And there are a lot of different apertures into the characters. Like, like the core, like the second part of this book, it's broken up into three sections, and the middle section, the kind of heart of the piece is you're watching a family of four systematically kind of like break down into their own kind of possessions. And one of them, like dad, it's like a nuclear suburban family, so you see dad kind of like lose himself to 24-hour news, and you
Mhm.
see their oldest son lose himself by way of social media and like Twitter, and like
Sure.
dealing with bots, or whatever, whoever is tweeting at him, like that's how he kind of succumbs. But the mom, Devin, I had, that was probably the most joyous is not the appropriate word, but like I connected the most with that corner of this story because you have a mother, a woman who is she just wants to feel good about herself. She wants like, she wants to find herself, and because she feels unmoored from herself, she feels kind of that like whoever she is, her identity has somehow kind of like she's lost herself. Like, is she just a mom? Is she just like making people's meals? Like, is she just like getting the kids to school? And like, like that sense of identity has kind of like lapsed for her. And her solution, her kind of like choice is to go to, social media, to Instagram, to wellness culture. And yeah, you see her kind of like succumb to her own possession by way of these gurus who, kind of give her those kind of empty calorie accolades of like, you can do it, go mama, go. But what I want to say is that like in doing the deep dive and researching and kind of like absorbing the kind of world of this book, like it was, I mean, like it's astounding and terrifying how like there is this notion, there is this thing that is happening in the world where regardless of where you fall ideologically, like, wellness culture has a certain thread of weaponizing itself, or like there's a certain kind of like indoctrination process of like, it starts off very harmless enough of like, I just want to feel better about myself. I want to like, I want to practice healthy living. And you find these profiles or these, you know, IG influencers, and like just the fact that it's like influencers, like the very notion, like the definition of the word itself, like you are being influenced into making life decisions. Like these influencers are pushing people towards new ideologies. And it could start off as like practice these yoga moves, drink this smoothie, take these supplements, don't
Mhm.
get vaccinated, don't,
It's this slippery slope. And
yeah.
that's what I loved. It was so subtle. And, because again, like you said, it starts off, and that's what I was, because again, I've seen that. I've, you know, um, interacted with those types of accounts. So
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. And I do like what you mentioned, um, how you show that each one kind of goes into their own little, they find their own world, and they're
Yeah.
each, they're brought, their personalities and their insecurities are brought out, and that makes it even more kind of um you know that's what catches them, that's what gets them, that's what gets them
Yeah.
hooked, and they end up just, except for the little one, which I was
Marcus.
like, oh my God, I was just I'm
Yeah.
not going to go anywhere. But that is when, you show the interaction between Noah and him, that I then felt like, oh my God, have I just jumped into a zombie novel? Which I think you did brilliantly, because then you've got that race against time, that um it just, where is this going? And I didn't know where it was going to go. And I was just like, you better not,
That
oh my
that
God,
makes
because
two
I
of us.
wasn't sure.
I
You
didn't know
did
where it was
great.
going. I rode the ride just as much as everybody. Like,
Yeah. And what did your edit now? Because I'm a writer
Uh-huh.
and I know the process.
Yeah.
um, how heavy were the developmental edits on this, or were they just
Oh,
like,
man.
yeah, let's do it?
I mean, they were pretty intense. And I mean, like I will admit, like I'm a pretty needy writer. Like I need guidance. I need help. I need like basically when I write that first draft and I'm coming to you, whether it's a beta reader or an editor, like I am essentially coming to you and being like, what the heck is this thing? I want to know. I want to believe that you know everything, V. Like as soon as you start writing, like you have it all mapped out. You just know exactly where everything's gonna go because I don't. And I want to believe that every other writer has learned a lesson that I have yet to learn, which is plot. Because I'm not
What
even
is
just a
that? Don't know it.
I'm not
Who's
a
she?
pantser. I'm like flying by the seat of my pantsing. Um,
I'm
and
a pantser. I get an idea and I'm just like, that sounds cool. That sounds like a book. That sounds like a story.
yeah, I've had the same editors for 5 books now. And it's amazing because like there's like this conversation that always happens between the first draft and the second draft, maybe the third draft, where they're like, yeah, we didn't really think you were going to be able to pull this one off. And like there's this moment where like when they say it, I'm like, what do you mean? Like when I turned in the first draft, like you were like you thought that I was like that it was not going to work. And like but they're like totally like there's that moment of like, huh? So like I feel like the jury's always out with those first few drafts. And I don't know. Like I yes. So to answer your question, this one was pretty uh revision intensive, much like, all of the books, frankly. And that's because there's like a certain kind of amount of discovery that I need that I only get when I have someone responding to the material.
Mhm.
Um, which is to say, I don't know, like I'm pretty awful. Like, yeah, I'm like the learning curve is just so steep for me. Um, okay, like let me see if I can give an example. In this book, all I wanted to do was write the second section. All I wanted to do was like write that the stuff that happens in the house with that family. But my
Which
editor,
is just when it is just gets like you go ham, man. That is like
that was the fun stuff for me. And but my editor was like, the camera needs to pull out a little bit. You need a more global view.
mm,
So the idea of like adding the first section and the third
mhm.
section kind of came at a later point in the process, in the development process, but still, like in the trenches, where they were like, you know, let's, how do we get into this world? And who's our kind of protagonist that's going to kind of like guide us through? And then like, how do you pull the camera back to see how the rest of the world or the rest of the country is dealing with that? And so those were all decisions that were made after a certain kind of like the train is starting to like gear up and like wants to leave the station. And all this stuff in part three, it was literally just the road meets zombies. Um, and that felt
So
kind of,
yeah.
I mean, it was a little static and like it didn't it didn't kind of like it was just flat because we've all kind of seen that and read that.
No, but you did it great. I love
Well, that's the thing. Like it took like that was the first draft version of it, and then like it was kind of like meh. And so in recontextualizing or kind of like configuring it, it was like, okay, let's add the like this found footage, like all the kind of like video clips and all the things that kind of go in and around it to kind of help with the worldview. And then also da 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 da. Anderson Cooper was a kind of like the fact that like part three is in essence narrated by Anderson Cooper. That was a later stage kind of idea. So like it's like everything just needs to like I just need to like respond to somebody telling me it sucks. And then I'm like, okay, this sucks. How do I fix it?
it. I don't think it sucked. I think you're just saying that because honestly, look, as being a writer, you know, when you get those revisions back, if they're huge, that's why I asked you, like, how much did the original depart from to what you have
Yeah.
now? Because again, I think I was really shocked when I finished it, thinking back to our conversation at Nikon, because I thought it was great. And I did say, like, I think it was at AuthorCon in St. Louis, I was like, thanks for writing this. Like, this needs to be said. Um, we need these kind of books. We need these um, stories that challenge us because yes, I love the fun stuff. Yes, I love zombies. Yes, plain zombies and vampires and all of it. Nosferatu. But um, you know, I think if there's anything we need right now,
Yeah.
especially with where the next few years, we need books that are going to push back
Yeah.
and writers that are going to push back. Um, and also people to buy them and to review them and rate them because then that signals to the publishers, wait, no, this is what we want to read. This is important. This matters to us. Otherwise, we're going to just get, yeah,
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know.
the other stuff.
It's terrifying to think because like I mean we had that conversation in July.
Mm.
Like like I like there's a version of our like an alternate version of our reality where things went another way. And I don't know like it, it's just I have no grand statement to make here other than like I'm just kind of reeling at the notion that like life is happening at such a clip that like I don't know like the publishing industry is a slow moving process where it's like here's like we have your final draft and now we're going to wait a year and the book will come out in 9 to 12 months which is like think of all the stuff that has happened since then like
Hmm.
it just it's hard to respond to the now, which is why I think that like this is not a subtle book. This is a very vulgar book. Like this is kind of like a ball peen hammer bludgeoning the reader as opposed to scalpel work or like it's like it's not the nuance is different because for me the time for nuance and subtlety feels like if you're going to write this story, tell this story, like you need you know like there needs to be kind of an accelerant to it. Like it needs to
Yeah.
feel, so
Um, you get that. You get that through the whole thing. And like I said, there's a reason why you wrote this. There was a reason, just coming from my kind of, woo-woo spiritual bruja mindset. Like, the idea was planted for a reason. And honestly, I'm so glad that you followed through with it. I'm so glad it's been published. I'm so glad people are picking it up and having great things to say about it. Um,
yeah.
with that
No, don't look at
said,
Goodreads anymore. Don't like just that's all. Like don't look at my Amazon reviews. Like it's done. It's perfect. Everybody loves it. It's done. Peace.
honestly, Goodreads, I don't even look. I don't even bother with Goodreads anymore. I mean, I think I posted a TikTok on this. So, and somewhere else. So I was just randomly you know, my book, The Pink Agave Motel comes out. It's a short
Yeah.
story collection. And someone gave it, and usually I don't care about reviews. I'm like, they're for readers. Gave it a 2-star review because it was a non-coherent novel and the chapters didn't make sense. And I saw what she was trying to do, but it wasn't working because it wasn't a great novel.
You know,
I was like, those chapters are different stories because it's a short story collection, but okay. I just sat there. I was like, all right, whatever.
I mean, I'm being cheeky with Goodreads, and I actively go, so it's my own darn fault. If I actually genuinely had a problem with it, I wouldn't go. But it's fun to kind of like rib every so often. But it's funny how like that reader who left the 2-star review, like clearly the book was not for that person, and you know for me, like I'm always like thinking of like I just have to find my readers and they're out there
Yeah.
somewhere. And it's like, you know, I just have to, sometimes you just have to get through the people who are not your readers first. and then you
Yeah, I was
find
just like, it's a short story collection, so they're kind of not supposed to make sense, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm cool.
You do you. You do you.
Goddess. Find that goddess in you. I just, yeah, I mean, that's part of like being a writer.
Yeah.
That's just, Gabino does a great, like where he posts his 1-star reviews, and I love it. Like,
Yeah.
it is just,
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like I feel I don't know. I don't feel great about my 1-star reviews, but I definitely feel like I don't know, there's something to be said about like I feel like it's amazing. I'm having a silly stoner epiphany here, but it's just like I don't know, like I just like appreciate that like you know, for writing this book, for writing Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, like it was going to be a polarizing book no matter what. Like, there are going to be people who just do not like this book at all. And I knew that from the get-go. I I have to embrace that. I have to accept that. Like that's part of the like, and I'm not saying it as like a this is my red badge of courage. Like I'm just saying that like when you wade into those waters, people are going to have opinions and, it's just wanting, I guess if anything, it's like, not liking the book on its own terms. If the book is not for you, then it's not for you.
yeah,
Walk
oh,
away. Walk
absolutely. I mean,
away.
no, exactly. Like I write really spicy stuff and people will say like, "Oh my God, there was too much." And it's like, well, it does say it's an erotic in there.
Does that make you want to
But
go spicier? Like when someone says
oh,
too spicy, are you like, I'll give you spicy?
exactly. I'm like, well, it kind of says on the tin, like if it says baked beans, they're gonna be, it's not gonna be pasta in there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, but going back to that, the question I have, saying what, bouncing off what you just said, have you lost any readers? Because I've seen other writers mention this. Have you lost readers saying, this is so woke, I'm never reading you again? Or people calling you woke or saying that you've fallen into the snowflake brigade or whatever because of this book?
Y- it's interesting. I don't think anyone's like singled me out as being woke. There's still time, like it's still early days. And I there it's a tough book to navigate for some readers because again, it goes back to that kind of like, the book kind of presents itself in such a way where it's like, oh, look at those people watching Fox News, like look at them, ha ha ha. Like, like so I think it kind of initiates itself under one kind of rubric that then starts to kind of decay or at least kind of like collapse in on of itself because uh, you know I don't want to say like I'm trying to be an equal opportunity offender, but I do think that like if you're going to kind of like explore these topics, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of like wokeism or conservatism, like whatever the kind of like the kind of the ends of the spectrum are, like this book is saying we're all kind of screwed. It's like, I mean,
Man, I love it.
it's just,
2025, baby.
I
Come
mean,
on.
it's a little world is burning, and I think that like, you
New
know,
year, new you.
yeah, I just, you know, and the book is, I guess I should say, it's a satire. It's a very cheeky book, but it's so cheeky that the tongue just kind of like pokes right out of the like right through, just kind of like go like, and that's on purpose because I feel like I just wanted to go maximalist. I just wanted to go big in this way, like Evil Dead big. Like
Yeah.
I wanted things to feel grotesque and vulgar and and inappropriate because like that response of like ugh, like I'm that's that reaction that to me is demonic. Like I'm trying to think like I did have these moments where I was like asking myself like what would a demon be like today? Like if a demon was to possess my body, would it be very much like, "Hello, Father Karras, like I'm the devil," or would it just be like, "I'm gonna run this body into the ground. I'm going like I don't think it's not like Airbnb where it's like you have to leave the house the way you found it. Like you run that shit into the ground." And like it's like I think demons would just be like, let's like, I don't care if I give it back to you and it's not in pristine condition anymore.
Yeah.
Your body means nothing to me. Like
Yeah, a
I
demon's
mess it up.
eternal and can live on. And I think you showed that really well, like the humor, the vulgarity, and at the dinner table when she's starting to try to, you
Ugh,
know, show off her new lifestyle with her family, and
yeah,
their dinners change. And to me, that was absolutely, I had to laugh.
yeah.
It was like, Violet, you sick. Why are you laughing at this? And as you see the progression of her and their interactions,
Yeah.
um, and the marriage as well. So I think you did a great job with that.
Oh
Uh,
man. So gross. Um,
yeah,
hey
the
V,
TV
you're the
scene's
best.
gross. I
You're the
like that
best.
though.
I'm just glad you're still talking to me after reading this book.
I just, I thought it was brilliant, really,
Oh,
honestly. And I said, and I meant it, it was the scariest book I had read in a long time. I found it so frightening because of all of it, what it really means when you read be
yeah.
between the lines, for me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, take away the demons, take away the zombies, take away anything metaphorical, like take away all the monsters. And if you're just left with the kind of radicalization of all these people by way of their input of information, how they take in information, like that is a horror story in of itself. You
Yeah,
don't need zombies, you don't need demons to tell that
no.
story. So like I think that's kind of the metaphor of the monstrous of the demons. Like that's just the sugar coating for this
You don't
nasty
even need,
little
yeah,
pill.
no, absolutely. You don't need even any demonic possession or anything truly evil to justify what's, I think gets justified in some of these people's minds,
Yeah.
you
Oh my
know,
God.
school shootings,
Ugh.
just things like that, where it's kind of like there's a justification. You're like, that is the most heinous thing ever. T the taking of innocent lives. And yeah, it really hit home. I loved it.
So Clay and V will transition over to audience Q&A. V, thank you so much. Wonderful job. And V, if you want to chime in on any of these questions as a fellow horror writer and as someone who's read the book, feel free to chime in. I think, Clay, first, we have 5 or 6 questions already. Folks, if you have a question, please get it into the Q&A box. And Clay, I think we will circle back to Wake Up. But first, let's talk more about you. William asks, I know Clay has had varied interest over the years. I believe he started in theater and moved on to comic books, short stories, and novels. Can Clay tell us his origin story?
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I mean, I lucked into writing. I'm a only child. Uh, Single mom raised me. I had a lot of time on my hands for a good portion of my childhood, and I was not a good student. But I did find like writing found me. Like writing was the thing that I kind of glommed onto as early as like 12, maybe like sixth grade, and it started initially as playwriting. Like I wrote plays. Um, and that kind of dovetailed into writing short stories because there's this wonderful kind of gray area or like a Venn diagram between theater and fiction, and that's first person narratives. First person narrative on the page is just a short story from the first person narrative. But you take that same material and you get an actor behind it and it becomes a monologue. And I just love that kind of duality of text. So for years, all I did was write monologues or write these narratives that were like short stories to publishing people and monologues like plays for theater people. And I would perform them here in New York, like off Broadway for years, like 20, like over 20 years. Like that's what I did. And early on in the process, I lucked out. I lucked out. Total Cinderella story. I got a two-book deal uh, right before graduating from college. Um, and that kind of like led me into the professional world, real world, where I was able to kind of stumble into life and figure out how to be a writer. And that kind of, but it would like that first book was a collection of these mono stories that I just told the publishing people like, yeah, these are totally short stories. Um, but like long story short, like that was the kind of beginning. That was the origin of it. And I have had a few ups, I've had a lot of downs, and it's just like this roller coaster that gets us here with V.
That's publishing. Ta-da! And we
Publishing.
keep, honestly, we keep coming back for more.
Oh God,
We're
this
happy to be on the ride with you, Clay, tonight. An anonymous attendee asks, your books have a way of staying with me days after reading them, such as Ghost Eaters. Can you talk about where that concept came from?
the concept of ghost eaters. Yeah, I mean, I've been honest about this too, where it kind of came from two places simultaneously. I years and years ago, starting in high school to college, I had a friend he meant the world to me, and I lost him. We lost him to his addiction at a point where we were in our kind of early to mid 20s, and it was heartbreaking. I wasn't there for him when he needed me. Like I kind of made a decision where I stopped supporting him because I thought tough love was the way to go, and that ended up not being the case. And yeah, he passed away, and that was really hard. Uh, this was decades ago now, and that happened. So that ends up in my kind of like my who I am. Uh, Fast forward years and years and years and years later, like a decade later, and I'm working on this project for a film production company, and they wanted to like write a horror movie, um, which would be basically, about a group of teens who are like, this was like right after It Follows came out. So like they were just like, ooh, we want another It Follows. So they were like, that one was all about like a demon that comes after you have sex. So like what is our version of that? And someone in these meetings, in these development meetings was like, what about a haunted drug? Or what about like a Freddy Krueger that follows you because you like pop a pill and like all that stuff and like, ooh. And I worked on the project for a little bit and it went nowhere, collapsed, it died. But those two words, haunted drug, just stuck in my craw for years, to the point where I was like, I really love that idea and I want to tell that story, but what is that story? And to me, it took being kind of honest with myself. And like, I didn't want to write a story about like a group of teenagers being attacked by a Freddy Krueger demon guy. Like, I needed to kind of ground the story emotionally for me so that it resonated. And I was just very frank with myself and like said, I want to kind of look back to this particular kind of moment in my life, this regret that I have, and see if there's anything there that can kind of be extrapolated and turned into this story. So it was like honestly like these two very, very, very different things happening, and just the kind of fusion of them years later, a decade later, over a decade later, and that became Ghost Eaters, haunted drug.
All right, thanks
You
for
write
that.
grief very well, though. From the other stuff I've read, you write grief in a very
I mean,
way.
I've reached an age where like people I love are no longer here. And,
And you feel that. You feel that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
thanks for sharing that, Clay, and being so raw and honest with us. So Sarah, so now getting back to Wake Me Up here. So Sarah read the book, loved it. I appreciated how each character in that family had a good desire for themselves, but these desires became their twisted downfall through demonic influence. So that's her comment. And then her question is, did writing this drain you on an emotional level, or did you find yourself energized and hopeful that it would inspire the reader? And if a combination of both, which would you feel more during the process?
oh man, that's such a great question. And I feel like any answer I give is going to be, I'm going to be ashamed of it. And I struggled a lot with this book. This book wasn't cathartic. I had a hard time writing it. And it's because it was coming from a place where like I've been struggling with my own sense of hope. Like, how do I find hope right now? And so the book, I don't want to paint it as a bummer as much as I kind of want to paint it as like an existential laugh. Like to me, like it's like when the world is burning, what do? You can't help but laugh. Like that, like the insanity, like the kind of like the fracturing of one's uh I don't know, like it's for me like I'm kind of throwing up my arms and just being like, I don't know what to do other than scream. So it like there is a certain level of catharsis in it, but it is, you know, I I struggled and it wasn't a pleasurable experience in the way that maybe writing other books have been. But it was necessary. Like this is the story that I wanted to tell, and this is where the emotions behind the story, this is where they were taking me. Um, so I feel like I don't know. Now I'm like dealing with like how are readers going to take this? Like how's the reader going to feel? And my hope, like one of the hopes is like maybe they want to scream back. Like maybe, like I'm screaming from this side of the gulf, maybe you're on the other side and you can scream back. I don't know if that's catharsis. It doesn't feel like hope, but it feels like what is the thing that it's like, okay, I don't know if I can, I'm not really hopeful right now, but I need to I need to do something. Like, it's like that kind of anxiety. Like, it's like the energy of like, okay, let's do something. It's the shark, does the shark feel hope? No, but it has to keep moving. Like, this is an emotional shark. Like, this book is just nothing but an anxious anxiety shark. Got to keep moving.
It's like the violinists on the Titanic. They just keep going. They just keep playing, man.
Yeah. Which that to me is, yeah, breaks my heart.
And so, Clay, we'll get you out of here. Two more quick questions. Mike, and I know we're avoiding spoilers, but I do have to ask this question because it was, quite a powerful scene in the book. Michael asks, Clay, how difficult was it to write the scenes with Noah and his mother?
Oh God. I am.
Those were amusing. They were gross and amusing.
No, but I'm realizing that like this is the moment. Like this is the part. Like if you get to page 70 of this book, like people are dealing with this thing that is like really pushing people away. Like it's really fascinating to me because I mean I wrote it, so clearly something within me needed to write this. But it's like I did this gosh darn thing where I just like drew real big line in the sand. And I was like, are you going to cross it? You going to cross it? If you cross it, then we got 300 more pages to go, bub. And like, but like that is the shot across the bow. And I lose people there. And I think I needed to lose people. I don't know if I needed to lose people, but I think I like this is we see the first possession take root, and it had to be really traumatizing. It's very traumatizing for Noah. I can only imagine I don't even want to imagine what that would be like, but I wrote it. So there you go. And I don't know if I'm like it's not me defending myself, but the rationalization behind that traumatic, very grotesque scene is I think of The Exorcist, whether you want to think of the book or the movie, maybe the movie more so. But I think of The Exorcist that came out over 50 years ago. That blows my mind that that movie, which traumatized us all, traumatized me because I saw it way too young. But I think of that one scene in The Exorcist where Reagan is doing some very awful things to her body. And that to me felt like a violation. It was like a literal violation in the sense of what we're watching on screen, and it felt like a figurative violation to me watching it because it was so traumatic. And I did have a moment in writing this book and thinking of this scene that we're talking about. I was like, that was 50 years ago. Like, where are we now? And like, what is the version of that now? So this was my like kind of Reagan, like this is mom coming into the room, seeing what her daughter is doing and being traumatized by that. Like that was the kind of I was like, I have to do that, but I have to do it cranked up to 11 because it's 2025 and the world is different now. Like we're not, yeah. So, and now I have to live with that forever. Like that scene exists in the world and there's no taking it back. I want to buy all the books and be like, nope, nope, nope. Never mind. Never mind.
No,
Quite
but
a memorable
honestly,
scene.
look, it goes back to exactly what you said before, about demons not leaving anything left.
Yeah.
What else would a demon do but
Yeah.
totally blaspheme
Yeah.
the relationship, the body, the anything that's sacred, all
Yeah.
of those things, you take it and you just strip away any sort of meaning, any sort of love. It is absolutely, that is the demon's job. It is
Yeah.
absolute devoid of anything. There's no consciousness, there's no right or wrong. It is just this monster. And that just really reinforces it. So you have to go there to reinforce it. You're not going to have like it's not like the originals where the demons are hot and you're just like we boning. Okay.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Yeah. No boning these
You
demons.
really
No boning.
get in there. No,
No,
no.
no, 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 no. No, no,
And
no, no.
so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So this will be the last question, 60 seconds for both of you, actually. So Christina wants to know what is next for Clay. And she also wants to know, V, you have a new book coming out next month, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about that? So, Clay, what's next for you?
I have a YA novel called Shiny Happy People that comes out from Delacorte, and I think it comes out in November. I hope it comes out in November. And I have a new collection of short stories called Acquired Taste that's coming out from Titan. Titan.
And
They
V?
better send that to me.
And V, what's going on with you? What can we expect next from you?
Yes, so literally in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, February 11th, right before Valentine's Day, guys. Okay, you need a little something, something to take with you to bed for yourself, for your partner. The Pink Agave Motel, and it is basically a short story collection with a novella in the middle, the Pink Agave Motel. And it's everything from, I love Cabin in the Woods. So we got a merman story in there. We have vampires, cannibals, we have obsessive love, we have um, everything you can imagine. And to me, it's just fun. It is why I love to write. And I have to, I need emotional and mental breaks to write these things. So the Pink Agave Motel, if you want spice, you want fun, you want really dark, dark material, grab it for Valentine's Day.
V stands for very, very spicy.
Don't you know it?
So Clay, V, wonderful job, great conversation. I think folks really enjoyed it, those watching live and those watching the recording. Do either of you have any last words for the audience before we wrap it up?
Grab a copy of the book.
Stay safe out there.
So thank you all so
That
much
sounds
for
like way
watching.
too creepy, Tom.
That was an ominous way to end it.
I know.
So for those watching live, please take the feedback survey and look for the follow-up email tonight. So thank you all so much, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their night.
Thank you,
Thank
V.
you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Robert.
everyone.
Thank you, libraries. Thank you so much for making this possible. We love you.